AITA for ruining 2 marriages by exposing my wife cheating with her friend's husband? I am 41 years old, and until recently, I believed I had a fairly stable life. Not perfect, but solid enough to feel secure. My wife is 37, and we met more than 12 years ago at a professional conference. From the beginning, there was a strong, almost immediate connection. We dated for about 2 years before getting married. Our relationship was not particularly dramatic. We were not the kind of couple who constantly argued, nor were we the type to live in a romantic bubble. We were functional, and for a long time, I thought that was enough. We have 2 children, aged 9 and 6. We always said we did not want more, not for a lack of love, but because we knew our limits. We both work full-time jobs in professional fields. We are both involved in parenting, and overall, life moved at a fairly predictable pace in our suburban home outside Denver. If someone had asked me a few months ago if I trusted my wife, I would have answered yes without hesitation. But there are things you do not see until it is too late. My wife was never a particularly problematic person. She did not have destructive habits or suspicious friendships. However, over the years, she began to change in small ways that I ignored at the time. One of those changes was alcohol. It was not that she drank every day. In fact, she could go weeks without touching a single drop, but when she did, it was as if she became another person, louder, more impulsive, more careless. At first, I took it as an occasional thing. We all have bad days. We all need to disconnect. But over time, those occasions started to become more frequent, especially at social gatherings with friends. I tried to talk to her about it several times. We even attended a few counseling sessions together. Not because the situation was extreme, but because I wanted to prevent it from becoming so. But she never saw the problem. "I am just having fun," she would say. "You are overreacting." Maybe I was. Or at least, that is what I thought at the time. Everything started to change the night of a dinner with some friends. They were a couple we had known for years. She was a close friend of my wife, and well, we got along, but we were never close. Close enough to share a table, but not secrets. The dinner was at a fairly upscale restaurant in downtown Denver. One of those places where everything seems designed to impress, with warm lighting, soft background music, and perfectly arranged tables. From the moment we arrived, I knew there would be alcohol, and I also knew it could become a problem. I thought about talking to her before going in, saying something like, "Please, pace yourself tonight." But I had tried that before and it never worked, so I decided not to do it. Maybe that was my first mistake. At first, everything was going well. Normal conversations, laughter, and shared stories. We ordered wine to go with the meal, and she had a glass, then another, and another. It was not enough to cause a scene yet, but I could already notice the changes. She spoke louder, interrupted others, and laughed at moments that were not really funny. I tried to stay calm. I thought that if dinner ended soon, we could avoid a bigger problem. But then came dessert. And after that, someone suggested ordering shots. I tried to intervene. "I think we have had enough for today," I said in a calm tone. But she did not take it well. "You always have to ruin everything," she replied with a smile that was not really a smile. Our friends looked at each other, uncomfortable. They knew how she could get. Even so, they accepted the drinks. I did not order any, as I had to drive us home in our SUV. When the shots arrived, she was already quite agitated. She tried to take my glass when she saw I would not touch it. "If you do not want it, give it to me," she said, reaching out. I stopped her. "No, you have already had enough." That was all it took. Her expression changed immediately. "Who are you to tell me that?" Her voice went up several notches. Several people in the restaurant started to look our way. I felt that mixture of embarrassment and tension that paralyzes you. I tried to keep my composure. "Lower your voice," I whispered to her. But it was useless. "You always want to control everything," she continued. "I am not a child." She tried to take the glass from me again, this time with more force. In that moment, I made an impulsive decision. I poured the contents onto my dessert plate. Silence. For a second, everything paused, and then it exploded. "Are you crazy?" she yelled. "What is wrong with you?" I will not repeat everything she said, but it was enough to have the whole room staring at us. I had never felt so exposed. We paid the bill quickly and left. The drive home was silent, far too silent. I knew the conversation was not over, and I was right. When we arrived, the babysitter had already put the kids to bed in their rooms upstairs. I stayed in the living room. I needed a few minutes to calm down, think, and process what had just happened. She went upstairs, probably to change. During those minutes, I considered many things, divorce being one of them. It had never been a serious thought before, but that night it started to seem like a real possibility. Not because something irreparable had happened, but because I was tired of repeating the same cycle. I do not know how much time passed until she came down. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe more. She was wearing comfortable clothes and, to my surprise, holding a glass of wine. She sat on the floor across from me as if nothing had happened. "Why are you in a bad mood?" she asked. That question was the trigger, but instead of blowing up, I decided to hold back. "We will talk tomorrow," I said. She let out a little laugh. "You are so dramatic." And then she said something that changed everything. "Are you like this because I had an affair with my friend's husband?" She laughed. But it was not an innocent laugh. It was different. I froze completely. I did not know if I had heard her right. "What did you say?" She looked at me with that provocative expression she sometimes got when she drank too much. "You heard me." I felt a chill run through my body. I pulled out my phone. I did not know exactly why. Maybe instinct, maybe the need for proof. "Repeat it," I told her. She rolled her eyes. "I had an affair with him," she said, and it felt exciting. In that moment, I did not feel immediate anger. I did not yell. I did not react the way one would expect. It was something colder, deeper, as if everything inside me had hit pause. I stared at her, trying to figure out if what she had just said was a cruel joke or a real confession. "Since when?" I finally asked. She tilted her head, as if considering whether it was worth answering. "A while ago," she muttered. "Does it matter?" Yes, it mattered. It mattered more than I could express right then, but something in the way she spoke told me I was not going to get a straight answer. Still, I pushed on. "How long exactly?" She shrugged. "Months, years," she slurred. "I do not keep a calendar." I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. It was not just a betrayal. It was an entire history that had taken place behind my back. And the worst part was that it was with someone we knew, someone who had been in our house, someone with whom I had shared laughs, dinners, and conversations. I did not know what to say. I did not know what to do. But if I knew one thing, it was that I had to stay calm, because in that state she was saying more than she ever would when sober. "Why?" I asked. She let out a short laugh. "Because I can." That answer hit me harder than anything else. There was no guilt, no remorse. It was pure defiance. It was contempt. "You always want to control me," she went on. "But you cannot. You never could." Every word felt like confirmation that this was not an accident. It was not an isolated mistake. It was a repeated choice, sustained over time. At some point, she stopped speaking coherently. She started mixing up sentences, changing the subject, laughing to herself, but it no longer mattered. She had said enough, more than enough. I stopped the recording and got up without saying another word. I did not have the energy to argue. There was no point in doing so right then. I went upstairs to the bedroom, changed, and got into bed, and somehow I fell asleep. I do not know how. Maybe the body simply shuts down when it cannot process anymore. The next morning, everything seemed normal, too normal. I went down to the kitchen and saw her making coffee. "Good morning," she said, acting completely natural. She looked at me for a few seconds. "What is wrong with you?" I did not answer. She frowned. "I have a headache. I think I drank too much last night." "Of course you did." But that was not the important part. The important part was that she did not remember, or was pretending not to remember. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. The real conversation could not happen there. Not with the kids in the house, not without preparation, not without thinking through every step. "We will talk later," I said. I spent the rest of the morning on autopilot. Breakfast, getting the kids ready for school, and our usual routine. But my mind was somewhere else, going over every word from the night before, every detail, every possibility. That same day, I called a friend, a family law attorney, one of the best I know in the area. I did not give him all the details, just enough for him to understand the situation. "I need to start preparing," I told him. His response was direct. "Then, do not wait." And I did not. But before making any final decisions, I needed to confirm the truth. Not because I completely doubted it, but because this was too big to base solely on a drunken confession. So I did something I never thought I would do. I contacted her friend, the wife of the man in question. I sent her a simple text message. I need to talk to you. Is it important? She replied almost immediately. She agreed to meet that same day at a quiet coffee shop nearby. When she arrived, I noticed the concern on her face. Is everything okay? She asked. I shook my head. No, I got straight to the point. There was no sense in beating around the bush. I believe your husband and my wife are involved in an inappropriate relationship. The silence that followed was heavy, very heavy. Her expression slowly changed. Confusion, denial, fear. No, that makes no sense, she said. They would not do something like that. I understood her. I had thought the same thing myself. I explained what had happened the night before. How she said it. How she sounded. How it did not seem like just a simple joke. She listened in silence. Then she asked to see it. The video. I hesitated for a second, but I knew it was necessary. I showed it to her. Her reaction was immediate. Her eyes filled with tears. But she did not cry. Not yet. She would not make something like that up, she finally said. I nodded. That is what I think. We sat in silence for a few seconds, processing it all. I am going to check his phone, she added. It is easier for me than for you. She was right. Let me know what you find. We said goodbye without knowing exactly what would happen next, but we both knew something had been broken and there was no turning back. A few hours passed, then a message. I found something. We need to talk. We met again. This time, her expression said it all. There was no doubt, no denial, only pain. She slid her phone toward me. Messages, conversations, clear proof. There was no way to interpret it any differently. The truth was right there. No filters, no excuses. I felt something break inside me. Something final. I am sorry, she said quietly. But there was nothing to be sorry about between us. We were both victims of the same story. After a few minutes of silence, she spoke again. We have to confront them. I nodded. Together. They could not have time to invent versions of the story or coordinate lies. It had to be direct and immediate. Where? I asked. She thought for a moment. In a neutral place. I agreed. And with no alcohol. That was key. I could not let my wife hide behind another excuse. We agreed on the day, the time, everything. And when I left that meeting, I no longer had any doubts. This was not a suspicion, it was the end. The day of the confrontation arrived faster than I expected. Not because time had flown by, but because my mind had not stopped replaying everything over and over. Every word, every message, every detail. We had chosen a simple, casual restaurant nearby, nothing fancy, nothing that would invite prolonging the night, and above all, a place where alcohol was not the center of attention. I arrived first as always. I needed a few minutes to prepare myself, breathe, and gather my thoughts. Shortly after, she arrived, the other man's wife. Her face reflected exactly what I was feeling. Exhaustion, pain, determination. We sat across from each other. We did not talk much. We did not need to. We both knew why we were there. A few minutes later, they arrived. My wife smiled when she saw me, as if it were just a regular dinner, as if nothing had happened. That was the hardest part to endure. The other man also seemed relaxed, entirely too relaxed. They sat down, ordered food, and tried to start a normal conversation. I replied just enough. I observed. I waited. I knew the moment had to be precise, not impulsive, not emotional. When we finished eating, she, his wife, took the initiative, just as we had agreed. She put her silverware down on the table, took a deep breath, and spoke. I want to say something. The tone was enough to change the atmosphere. My wife looked up. What is wrong? We have been friends for years, she continued. And I never thought you would betray me like this. Immediate silence. Heavy. The other man frowned. What are you talking about? But his voice was no longer confident. My wife, on the other hand, looked confused. I do not understand. Your husband told me everything, she said. It was a smart move, very smart, because in that instant, they both made the same mistake. The other man reacted first. I have not said anything, he exclaimed. He did not deny the inappropriate relationship. He denied being the one who spoke. Mistake. Big mistake. My wife snapped her head toward him. What did you do? Another mistake. She did not ask what they were talking about. She asked what he did. And in that moment, everything became clear. There was no more room for lies. There was no way out. I leaned back slightly in my chair, watching. I did not need to step in anymore. They were exposing themselves. We have proof. I finally added calmly. My wife turned to me. It is not what it looks like. The most predictable, empty, useless phrase. Then explain to me what it is, I replied. She could not. She opened her mouth, closed it, and looked around for an escape that did not exist. And then everything exploded. Emotions ran extremely high, and his wife reacted strongly, slapping him and throwing the contents of her glass at my wife. The whole restaurant turned to look. I did not try to stop her. Not in that moment, because even though it was not the right way to handle it, it was understandable, it was human. My wife sat frozen, soaked, speechless, devoid of any reaction. For the first time, she was not in control of the situation, and it showed. "This is over," she said, her voice cracking. Then she turned and walked out of the place without looking back. I stood up immediately. I had nothing else to do there. I did not want to hear excuses. I did not want to see any more. I went after her and caught up with her on the street. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded, even though it was obvious she was not. "I will take you home." She did not hesitate. We got in the car. The drive was silent at first. Then, slowly, we started to talk. Not about them, not about the betrayal, but about what came next. Divorces, lawyers, kids, consequences, reality. When we arrived, she looked at me. "Thank you." I nodded. "You do not have to thank me." I paused. "No one deserves this." She looked down, and then something unexpected happened. She leaned toward me and kissed me. It was brief, but enough to catch me off guard. I did not respond immediately. Then I pulled away. Her expression changed. "I am sorry," she whispered. I shook my head. "No." I took a deep breath. "It is just not the right time." And we both knew it. It was not desire, it was not intention, it was pain, confusion, the need for support. We said our goodbyes, and when I was left alone in the car, for the first time in the entire process, I felt the full weight of what had happened. It was not just an inappropriate relationship. It was the end of a life, of a history, of everything I thought was stable. And at the same time, it was the beginning of something completely unknown. After that night, nothing was ever the same again. There were no real attempts to save the marriage. There were no long conversations trying to rebuild something that was already destroyed. There were only consequences. My wife came home later that same night. I was already there waiting for her. Not to argue, not to yell, but to end it. She walked in with her face still showing the marks of what had happened. Exhausted, disoriented. "We can talk," she said quietly. I looked at her for the first time in years. I felt nothing. No love, no anger, not even disappointment, just emptiness. "Speak," I replied. She tried to explain herself. She said it was not what it seemed, that it had been a mistake, that it did not mean anything, but her words carried no weight because they no longer mattered. "You admitted it," I told her, "and there is proof." She stayed quiet, trapped, with no way out. "You need to leave," I added. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. She hesitated for a moment, as if she wanted to argue, but she did not. She went upstairs, packed a few things, and left. As simple as that. As final as that. The following days were strange. The house was quieter, far too quiet. The kids asked about her. I answered just enough, without going into details, without lying, but without destroying her image to them. Meanwhile, I started the divorce process. Fast, direct, straightforward. She, on the other hand, began to fall apart, not just because of the separation, but because of everything that followed. Her friend, now ex-friend, did not stay quiet. She decided to expose everything to family members, to acquaintances, even on social media. It was not something I would have done, but I was not going to stop it either. The truth came out, and with it, the social consequences. My wife started calling me, crying, begging. "She is ruining my life," she would say. There was something ironic about that, but I did not respond with sarcasm. "I cannot help you," I told her. "Not anymore." And I hung up, because it was true. It was no longer my responsibility, but the worst was still yet to come. One night she drank too much, and once again decided to drive. Bad decision. She got pulled over by the police. Driving under the influence. Arrest. A night in jail. When she called me, I could not believe it. "Please, pay the bail," she begged. The answer was simple. No silence. "Find someone else." And I hung up. It was not cruelty, it was a boundary. Something I should have set much earlier. That incident changed everything in the legal process. The judge did not ignore it, nor could he. The custody issue became clear, painfully clear. They were not going to put the kids at risk, not in those conditions. The result, primary custody for me. She was granted limited, conditional, supervised parenting time. As for the assets, I kept the house. She received her financial share through the settlement, and I took on certain obligations, nothing unexpected, but the real difference was stability. I had it. She did not. Over time, the situation calmed down. The noise, the drama, the calls. Everything slowly faded away until one day, she came back. She knocked on the door, I opened it, and I barely recognized her. She was not the same person. There was no arrogance, no defiance, only exhaustion. I have hit rock bottom, she said. Her voice was weak, real. I lost everything. I did not answer. I am sorry, she continued. For everything. Tears. Silence. I want to fix it, she added. I want to come back. I shook my head. Not harshly, but firmly. There is nothing to fix. Her eyes welled up even more. We can try. No, I interrupted. I paused. This was not a mistake. I looked right at her. They were choices, lots of them. The inappropriate relationship, lies, alcohol, the public scene, legal trouble. All connected, all preventable, but chosen. She tried to step closer. I took a step back. For the kids, she whispered. For them, I replied. You will have to truly change. Silence. But not with me. That part was final. She understood. This time she did not argue. She did not justify herself. She just nodded and walked away for good. As for the other man, things did not go any better for him. His marriage ended. His reputation plummeted. He lost more than he gained. Much more. And his ex-wife? Over time, we started talking more. Not immediately, not as a relationship, but as two people who had gone through the same thing. Support, conversations, understanding, and eventually, something more. Nothing chaotic, nothing impulsive, something calm, honest, and different. I do not know if I would call it a happy ending, but it is a just ending. Everyone ended up exactly where their choices led them. My ex-wife lost everything because of choices she could have avoided making. I lost a life I thought was secure, but I gained something more important. Peace, stability, dignity, and the chance to start over, without lies, without chaos, and without the fear of what might happen the next time someone decides to drink too much. In the end, it was not luck, it was not fate, it was choices and their consequences. Comment. I really hope this story gave you something meaningful to reflect on. For me, the biggest takeaway is how vital it is to protect your self-respect and set clear boundaries in relationships. I've learned that we can't control other people's choices, but we can always decide how we respond and what we allow into our lives. Taking responsibility for your own peace is incredibly powerful. It's okay to step away from chaos, even when it feels painful at first. Healing takes time, and treating yourself with kindness during that journey truly makes a difference. If you are facing a tough situation right now, please remember you aren't alone. Choosing a calmer and more honest life is always worth it in the long run. I truly believe that when we value ourselves deeply, better days and better connections naturally come our way. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to reflect with me today. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.